Hello, everyone. I am here with JoAnn M. Hunter from Bad Cinderella, the amazing choreographer. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. And JoAnn, what I noticed about you, you have a trajectory that several choreographers have, in that you began your career as a dancer, as a performer. You had a lot of Broadway shows actually under your belt with Jerome Robbins' Broadway, Shogun, Thoroughly Modern Millie, and then you transitioned into choreography. So was that always the plan for you? What sparked that transition?
No, it was not always the plan for me. No. A lot of my colleagues, yes, it was a plan. Like Casey, Andy, Sergio, all those my dear friends and that I danced with. They all, as far as I know, they always wanted to choreograph. I remember, them talking about that. For me, no, I wanted to perform.
Hmm.
I love performing. I love being on stage. I love working with people. That was I would say to people that was my tunnel vision. That's what I wanted to do. And why Thoroughly Modern Millie was my last Broadway show that I was performing in, and I remember during the course of that show, which I loved. I love working with Rob and Michael and Dick and and Janine. Oh my God, just brought back memories. But I I knew I wanted to take a break, not just because, and I'm going to say I was getting burnt out, but not in a bad way. I don't mean that in a bad, negative way. I just, I was very fortunate that I had worked consistently and was able to pay bills and it was my career, but I knew I needed to rest. I also went through a personal change in my life, and I thought, let me just take a break from doing a long running show. And Rob had asked me if I wanted to be his associate, and I didn't know really what that meant, to be honest with you. I was like, do I have to sign a contract? Do I what does that mean? Is it, am I stop doing this? And he was great. No. And so I loved it. I loved that I was still participating in doing what I loved, but I could have a glass of wine at dinner time.
That's a good
you know,
plus.
yeah, and I love being in the room and I love bantering and I love that. It was I found it very fulfilling, which I wasn't expecting. And then another coworker of mine, colleague of mine, who's a director, asked me one day, "You should." Actually, he said this to me, and several friends had said to me, "You should do your own work." And I thought, "Why? I'm happy doing what I was really happy doing what I was doing." And so then I decided, okay, I was asked to do something. Oh, you know what? Let me try it. I have a lot of knowledge just through osmosis and and as a performer, I knew what it took, and I had a lot of freedom doing the show, and not that was so exciting, way more than I ever anticipated, exhausting, um, scary as crap, but and I still, after even after that, Sam, I still wasn't sure if this is the road I wanted to take, because
Mm.
I transitioned late in my age. Um, and I thought, am I ready to start a new career? I was like, are you kidding? It took me so long to get here, so much hard work, so much classes and tenacity and just perseverance. I went, I don't know if I have that left in me. I was like, I don't, oh, it was so scary. It's still scary,
Hmm.
still scary. Um, but I loved it, and I loved being in the room, and I love being in the room with dancers more than anything. I mean, maybe not more than anything, but I love being in the room with dancers because we're a different breed.
Hmm.
We have a discipline that is not unlike athletes, I think, and 99.99% of the dancers I've ever had the pleasure to be in a room with are hardworking. They'll make it work. What do you need? It's just, and to be in a room like that where it feels like, I don't want to say yes people, because it's not that they bow down to you, whatever you say, but there's a willingness to want to make the same thing and create, and the trust that you have in the room. And I enjoyed that so much more than I ever anticipated.
Hmm.
So then my trajectory went like this, but I was like, oh, I kept going, to that other road, going, do I want to leave that road? And now the thought of performing again, even though I would never say I would not do it, but the thought of it, now that gives me agita.
Well, I would love to dive into your creative process a little bit, because for this musical, musicals take so long in development. This one, Bad Cinderella, had a previous life in London, and it's not the first time you've collaborated with Andrew Lloyd Webber. You've worked with him on several projects now,
Right.
but I think that Cinderella in London was the first time, the first major opening of a musical during the pandemic. Um, just after all the
Yes.
lockdown period, it was a very tense time for theater. How did that creating within that space, how did that affect your creative process?
It was, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was very hard. Yes, I believe it was the first show to open, first new show, I should say, not like a show that had been up and
Sure.
remounted again. But it was hard because the audition process, I went to London, they flew me there, I think it was September of 2020. So we're still in, I had to uh confine myself for 2 weeks. Then we did auditions. First live auditions we got to do. It was very regimented, very strict, but it was glorious to see real people in real time, right? And their eyeballs, I remember, were like this big because nobody had to be in front of anyone and for so long and to learn new choreography. And so I was very cognitive of making it not too long, not crazy jumping or anything, because probably everyone has done a ballet bar in their most of the time small apartments or their garages, or but and I couldn't partner anyone because at that point they're like, we can't. So it was all a trust thing. I said, how much partnering skills you have? Are you comfortable being lifted? Or, just it was a banter that. And so we always being aware of that, always being aware that this damn virus was around us. And so we were very limited in how we could be with one another. I was always told, JoAnn, you can't cross this line. When we were rehearsing, and I was always crossing it. I was like that. Oh my God, they were always getting in trouble. And I'm talking a literal line, not a metaphorical, but literal. You
A
can't
social
cross this
distance
line.
line.
You have to stay away from them. But it was still, my heart of hearts believe what we achieved was tremendous during that time. And it was very difficult to, because just for the mere fact that you had this COVID lingering over you, that everyone's always worried. We tested every single morning.
Mm.
I was like, I've had more thingies up my nose going from the back of my head. Uh, um, so it was challenging. And, I think, and we rehearsed in a theater, which was, you think that's phenomenal. You're going to be in the space, you're going to have automation, blah, blah, blah. But it was not fabulous because I like to be surrounded by four walls that feel like a giant hug.
Mm.
No one else could come in while you're creating, while you're working, while you're figuring things out. And even though you're in the theater, and yes, there are four walls, but they're very far away, and people are always in and out, and you hear this chatter constantly during
Mm.
rehearsal. And it's not, I don't mean it's their fault, or it's just people are walking in and out. You have crew. I just thought, never, ever again. Never again.
Well,
That was really tricky, really, really. I know it seems you're thinking, really, was it really tricky? But if you've never done it and all you're used to is a studio, a rehearsal room, first trying to figure things out, just this vast space, that alone, you're like, it's just too much. You wanted, I
yeah.
like the confinements of a studio.
Well, thankfully, it all came together because I think this show has such an interesting physical language to it. I was thinking of like the ball scene. Of course, it has a ball, which is classic fairy tale trope for Cinderella. But since this is a
Yeah,
new version with a bit more edge, you've layered in different kinds of movement on top of just like a classic waltz. It's not just that.
right.
So how did you think about those two kind of opposing sides to this piece? How did you create the visual language?
Well, I think, my training growing up was very diverse. My teacher brought in teachers from all over the country and Canada to teach us. So I was privy, starting as a dancer, to learn and dance different styles. So that's always been part of me, I think. And musically, the music that Andrew wrote is also different. Now, the ball is his homage to R&H. I mean, he is a huge fan. He believes they were the greatest melodists of the 20th century. I mean, he writes it. I mean, so that was going to be, I know that was his homage. He's never said that to me, but that is my belief. because just listen to it, right? But then
Sure.
there's music that's got a little bit more contemporary feel. So, and what I'm trying to say now, okay, so it can't live in that world. It has to live in a maybe more modern, more sexy world, which is we wanted it to have a little bit more sexiness to it, or sensuality, however you would like to put it. So, you know, figuring out what that movement is and making it a little bit more modern, a little bit more for younger people of the day, you know.
Mhm.
And then there's a sequence that he wrote during rehearsal, which is the party sequence at the end of the show. And he said, what do you think? I go, I think it should have like a salsa samba, like a hodgepodge of all of that in it, you know. And I gave him certain beats that I was thinking of, and he wrote, and I go, that's it. And then I worked with a percussionist, and we came up with all these rhythms. And so that, because I know how to dance and I know how to partner, I partnered all my life, and I love dancing with people. I love like
Mhm.
that, love that connection. So because of musically where what he wrote, I was able to then dive into stylistically how I wanted to um to develop dance that would help continue plotline, or at least pillow the emotions that are happening around it, or within
Wow.
it, I should say.
Yeah, I'm wondering because there's that really great, one that certainly lives in the contemporary realm is that great opening number, which is so high energy. And you have to deal with so many distinct characters that are all being introduced right there. What is your approach to something like that when you just have to have these cavalcade of characters out there?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, you get to know your actors when they audition. And there's a lot that I knew who had worked with me before, who most of them, a lot of them were making their Broadway debuts. So I was like pulling for them at the audition. I was like, oh, please, please. You know, everyone else on the team liked them. And so I knew their personalities, and also knowing what we wanted to do and how they moved. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of, some of the movies catered specifically to, there are two women at the beginning who come up who are very sinewy. It's catered to them. And costume wise, I wanted them more linear, their work, you know, so that you feel all these different people and what they contribute in the show. And then, and hopefully, and listen, if it doesn't work, then I've got to change it, because I don't care how creative I think I am. If the actors, the dancers, it doesn't feel right on them, the bottom line, it's going to do a disservice to all of us, me
Sure.
included, you know. So that's and you know, I love dancers that dance, and I always say this to all my dancers, that dance on the precipice, on just the verge of falling off. I said, don't be safe, go for it. But because if you have the technique behind you, then you're not going to fall off. And
Yeah.
all of them have it. And then I have, you know, singers who in their resume goes singer dancers, you know, but and I'm one of those people that I believe, well, I think a lot of us believe that we can see much more in a human being than maybe they can see in themselves.
Mm.
So I'm like, I know you can do it, and push them. And then watching, there's one young lady in the show who I adore. Her name is Mariah. And she's there as a Cinderella cover, but she can move. Great voice. And of course, you know, she's got to move. She's in the show. And she's not in the waltz because I only have 8 couples. And but she's in another sequence, and watching her gain like she was always in the back learning. And I said, Mariah, I was like, come here, center stage. And she looked at me, she goes, center? I go, center. And watching her from that time, first couple of weeks of rehearsal to when I see her on stage, the confidence that she has of her whole being is unbelievable.
Mm.
Because I think because she realizes, oh, I can do more than I thought I could. I think.
Yeah. It's a really great, there's a huge cast. It's a very diverse cast. And I was trying to think of other names, because you are one of probably a very small list of Asian choreographers in this business, certainly women. And I was struggling when I was thinking about it to come up with many other names. What does that feel like from your perspective of, where are the other folks like me, and how does that show up in your work?
I think, I mean, yeah, where are the other folks? I think they're out there. They just have not had an opportunity. You know, because I'm a mixed race, you know, depending on how I wear my makeup and my hair
Mm.
as a performer, I could I could lean more towards the Caucasian side, or even if I'm getting a tan in the summer, people are like, oh, I would get in a cab and people go, oh, they would speak to me in Spanish. I'd be like, no habla español, because I would have a tan. I just like, they were just, everyone knew I
Sure.
was different. They didn't know what I was.
Hmm.
But I do think that they're out there. And it's, somebody said that to me a couple of years ago. You're the one of not only Asian or Asian American choreographers, that work on Broadway. And I thought, really? I was like, I know Bjork, right?
Hmm.
I thought to myself, Jesus. And the female woman, for sure,
Sure.
definitely. Yeah, I feel I have a responsibility to do good work, to show that doesn't matter what I look like, that I can do good work, that I can collaborate, that I have an imagination, that I have the facility and the utilities to forward move a show. Um, and I have the responsibility to say that there's always other people out there. I mean, you have to open a door for them. Now, don't give them the work just to give them the work. I'm like, please do not hire me to tick your box. I was like, hire me because one, I'm right for the show, and two, I can deliver. And that's very important to me. And but the door has to crack open for someone to be able to, hey, I'm here too, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel responsible. I do feel a responsibility for that. I feel like if I can continue to try to do the best work that I can do, and do it with grace, and try to be a good human being, that alone should be able to open doors for other people.
Mm.
That's maybe similar to me, to what I look like, to who I am.
Yes. Well, hopefully the more doors will open soon. Um, Before I let you go, you were talking about, this phase of your career as choreographer, which was one you didn't maybe expect. Um, are there other things you've not done on stage, other types of, stories through dance that you haven't told yet, but you're really eager to tell on a Broadway
Yes.
stage?
You're gonna this. I don't know if you can print this. Oh, look at me! I'm just did give myself a facelift. I I am working. I wanted to, I know this is going to sound really weird. I want to tell a story about sex. And I don't, it's not nasty, it's not dirty. It's about the evolution and the story of sex through movement, through as much movement as I can. I'm working with somebody, and that is something, and it has humor. It's like I said, it's not, oh, Calcutta. They're not going to be naked on stage. It's not, that is not the concept of it at all. But it's like the idea. I feel like sex and sexuality is so, I don't know why it feels like so taboo here in America. I grew up feeling that way. I was just like, and just to put a pin in that bubble and just go get rid of all of that. Oh my God, they're too sexy. They're too this. It just drives me crazy. And I feel like, and there's a book I'm reading. It's a graphic novel, and it's hysterical, but it's about the story and the evolution of sex, and it's so funny. But how, I don't know. It's that's what I like to do.
Well, I can't wait to see that. I think that would be incredible. So we'll put that out into the
Me
universe,
too. I love it.
that it shows up soon. JoAnn, thank you so much for joining me. Fantastic job with Bad Cinderella. Everyone who's out there watching, make sure you stay tuned with us here at Gold Derby for the rest of this season, and go see Bad Cinderella now. Thank you, JoAnn.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. A pleasure to meet you.